Well, we will get started. Welcome, Bill. Been looking forward to this conversation, talking about projects, which we're always. Oh, you might want to unmute there.
Good idea. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Happens all the time.
Technology, man.
We're all working in the MSP space and projects and working with MSPs around the world. So I'm sure we can have a robust conversation, explore these things. I've actually got no slides prepared today. It's all conversation and our pretty faces. My beard's gone. I'm sorry. Beard for a while, but
I've been working on mine a little bit. I don't know.
And there's this thing at IT Nation that happened. A bunch of guys shaved their beards to raise money. It's pretty cool.
I know. I'm not going to do it yet.
Couple more years.
Yeah. Maybe after the holidays. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, let's just set a bit of context. Like, I'm just curious, how did you get into IT?
Oh, wow.
It's back a while, maybe, but
it does go back a while. It goes back into the mid to late 90s. Actually, the early 90s, early to mid 90s, where I used to work on gas pumps. Like at the service station, you pull in, you put gas in your car. I was the guy that repaired those gas pumps. And so when pay at the pump started happening and all the electronic dispensers started happening, I got involved with electronics very deeply. And then, when you put your credit card in, that's all tied into the system in the back office. So I got to, start playing with computers and networking and things like that. And then it just kind of, grew from there. And then it just kind of went from there. I got into that, and then I got a job at a factory, and where I learned about international networking, where I coordinated networks for a company that had manufacturing facilities in different parts of the world, and tied everybody together. And then I got out of that, started doing my own small business, like a trunk slammer kind of thing. And then that over the years developed into a full MSP. And probably after about 13, 14 years, I sold that MSP. And one of the things that I noticed, when I had the MSP, one of the things that frustrated me was that, I had Connectwise, but I never really had time to put it all together. I'd go to places like IT Nation and learn about what needed to happen, but I didn't have time to put it together. And so that's why I started FocusPlanIT, to be a resource for MSPs to put their Connectwise together for them. So, yeah. Long story, but there I am.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've seen many as well, and obviously I have my own MSP, and it does take a lot of time to build it out.
It does.
Time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can feel like Frankenstein because you're integrating different tools and integrations and scripts and reports, and the vendor promises never materialize.
It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot more work to set it up than what you think about when you're first getting in there, So
what I've seen, I guess, from my experience and from a lot of MSPs I talk to, is like not many people have actually studied project management. It's not like they start with project management and get into tech or come up with some sort of designation along the way. We're all learning by trial and error, lots of error, learning along the way, discussions, and burning our fingers, getting gun shy, different things. Have you explored any or gotten into any like official PM training, or is this all everything you do with your clients is based on what you've learned?
So yes and no. I have gone through some, preliminary PM training. It's one of those things where I start doing training and then I start getting busy, and I've never really gotten back to it. But the unique position I'm in is that I get to work with all sorts of people, and some people that I work with are fully, certified PMPs, and other people are just people that have had years and years of project management. And so there's always a little difference in the way people operate, but the same thing that's consistent across everyone is the fact that we're all using Connectwise. And Connectwise is, it does handle project management, but it's got its pitfalls. And so that's where the conversations all come together. And whether you're a full PMP or you're just somebody trying to get things installed, we're all facing those same pitfalls.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. These are all common things. Yeah, because I think there's kind of two tracks that people get into project management is they've been, in quotes, promoted from an engineering technician role, but it's really a career change. So they don't have the tools, the training, the process, nothing, the mindset. So you're kind of starting from scratch, or they're coming from a project management experience in construction or some other industry where they're doing all the official PM stuff, but none of that is necessarily directly useful either in the MSP space, or the tools aren't mature enough.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
it struggles both ways.
Yeah, it does. I mean, like you said, I mean, you could get somebody with a lot of project management experience, and they get, they could be using Microsoft Project or Asana or some of these other tools, and then they realize the value of having everything in one system in Connectwise. And with that, it kind of slows them down a little bit. It's perfect because Connectwise is one huge system that has all the information that has to do with your client and all the information that has to do with the time and the product and the finance and everything around that project. It's just clunky to use. So until you become, very efficient at using it, it's helpful to have tools like TopLeft to help you keep projects moving, and on target.
Yep. Yeah, just for everyone who's joined here, we're mostly talking about Connectwise, but I think it's really interchangeable with Autotask, all these challenges, integrations. So we'll give us if we don't make it more generic, but it really applies to both.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing is that a lot of MSPs, may or may not have a dedicated project manager. If somebody's a dedicated project manager, they're going to be living in the project module in Connectwise or Autotask all day, and they'll know, exactly how the system is working. Whereas a lot of MSPs have project managers that are also installers, or also technicians, or also engineers. So it's kind of tricky to, switch brain sets every time you're doing something different. You're going in and out of service tickets and in and out of projects. So it's kind of tricky to keep everything, in line without living in that module every day, all day. So again, it's where, it's not a perfect solution, but it is a solution to have all the information about the client, the products, and the time and everything in your PSA.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that too. Because doing the Zapier integrations or data reentry, it's just seeing teams where they go into Asana or Monday.com and it looks great, but they're actually not tracking time and not updating the status there either. So now you've gone from inaccurate data in one system to inaccurate data in two systems. So
that's right. Yeah. And there's no way to see any kind of project or customer profitability from that at that point. Yes, you're getting things done, but you really have no idea about profitability metrics at all.
Yeah.
By doing that.
So when a client starts working with you, what's typical for their situation with project management? Just the health of it, best practice. What are you seeing before they start working with you?
Usually before they start working with us, again, it depends on the client. A lot of times we'll have clients that don't really use the project module, where we have people that have kind of tried to use it, but it's gone by the wayside, because if you're not proficient in managing the project as part of the entire service delivery, then the project board and the project module kind of gets, it's out of sight, out of mind. And so a lot of people will go to create service tickets, a list of service tickets instead of projects. So that's what we see a lot of times. And then when we start working with them, we'll introduce the project module in more comprehensive manner as far as getting things done, and training people on how to use it and the different nuances of managing projects and managing your project portfolio without having to leave the system, just by having something side by side, so you can have your project layout and your project details on one screen, for example, top left on the other, to see how things are moving across all the projects.
Yep.
Yeah. So like if I'm managing, 150 projects, there's a way I can keep track of all of them, the entire portfolio efficiently and manage. I have to open up each one, open up the work plan, see what's going on. I mean, I can see some key things like percentage complete, stuff like that, date in, date start. But in order to really be efficient, what I've done in my system is I've just created swim lanes in top left to show me what's ready to go, what's in progress, what's scheduled, what are we waiting on. So I can see at a glance, I can scroll down through top left and see at a glance where projects are. And then I can also see when we're off budget and, off the time budget or whatever, or, we have ticket delays based on waiting on somebody, or if there's a ticket that is maybe fallen between the cracks. I can see that really easily by just looking at my 4 swim lanes in top left.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really efficient to do that, because in Manage, yeah, you can do it. But again, you have to open up each project and kind of analyze each work plan to really see where you are with those things.
Yep.
But it's okay. It just slows you down,
Yeah, but you can get stuck in the details and you're not getting the bigger picture of where these things are at. Yeah, so just to back up a little bit, I guess, how did you first find out about top left and what attracted you to it to begin with?
I don't remember how I first found out. I really don't. But I was attracted to the simplicity of just thinking, okay, well, logic tells me everything's moving from left to right. And it's the same as, it goes back to the overall concept of Connectwise, sales is on the left and finance is on the right and everything moves across. So if you make a little mistake in sales, it's going to be a huge problem in finance. So you think from left to right, what are the impact of each of the items or each of the things that we're working with. So at top left, it was kind of a natural thing for me to, it just clicked. It's like, okay, well, yeah, I think if we're moving, I can see here from left to right how this project is flowing through and how these individual tickets in the project are moving around, who's assigned to what, and, how we can, effectively manage this project from our top left portal just as effectively, if not more so, than we can inside of Manage. Yep. So to answer your question about how I don't know. It's been too long. I'm sorry. I don't know.
That's good. It's been a while. So
yeah.
And you Jess, you mentioned how you're using top left at FocusPlan with your own client, which is great. And you're helping your clients use it as well.
Right.
It's cool, sort of a recursive thing there. And so then, we talked recently about how you're using the new client portal feature, communicating with clients. How's that been helpful?
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things that I like to keep in mind when I'm doing project management, when I'm doing anything, is try to keep it as simple as possible. So one of the nice features about the portal, and which is really, it's been super helpful, is I can review a project during a project review meeting with a client, and we can adjust priorities with project tickets right there in the portal. They can see it moving in the portal. So I can be in that meeting, making adjustments to the tickets and, adjusting whether they're ready or they're scheduled or, we're waiting, whatever. And I can also adjust priorities and see and put them in the proper swim lanes. And the client can immediately see that from their portal where they can see what's going on. And then at a glance, they can see us working on the tickets and they can see the progress of their project moving through. So the portal's been super beneficial with several clients that have just, you're just able to log in and you see everything working. You can see us working on things. They'll call us out if we're a little bit late with something and it's got that little red circle around the resource. But yeah, it's really been a good improvement to the program. I was happy to see that one come along with.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just curious, with this work you with your clients, how many of the tickets do you actually schedule versus just prioritize and work that way?
Oh, we schedule 99% of our stuff is scheduled. We schedule literally it's so rare that we take a ticket and just start working on it, because the way that we operate is, we have clients that sign up for, for us to do their work. And so we'll create a plan, basically talk with them about priorities and come up with, exactly what we need to do. And then we'll start scheduling it out. That's the only way to really get things done, is to have it on the schedule. Otherwise it's going to fall between the cracks. No. So we'll schedule it out. And then from TopLeft, we can just take a look and say, okay, this is what I'm working on today. It's right here in the scheduled window for this project. So I can just go ahead and work on it from there. So most everything we do is scheduled from a project perspective. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think there's no right or wrong. It's just figuring out for your team and your clients what gets the fastest flow.
That's right. Now for clients that are using service tickets, triage, things like that, where scheduling is not as effective, because if you schedule so much and there's so many tickets coming in and the scheduling is so, it's doing more harm than good, because the technician would want to go, okay, what's my next ticket? What's my next ticket? What's my next ticket? Instead of, oh, I can't work on this ticket till 11 a.m. or whatever. So with TopLeft, you can see, you can set it up so that you can see, and you're probably better. You could probably explain this better than me, but you can see what those technicians are doing, and the technician can work off the TopLeft board without having to go schedule. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So of course,
It is working TopLeft and working from obviously top down as well, is grabbed from the top of the list. So starting, so that's how the work would flow through. When you're actually working, you want the stuff on the far right, you want to complete it and bump it out the end of the pipe, as it were.
Right.
Waiting on a client, well, let's get that done. If it's in progress, let's get it done and completed. And then grab from your scheduled and ready, and however your workflow is set up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And I can tell, back to projects, when when I'm using TopLeft, I can tell, when somebody is lagging behind with a project ticket, or if we're waiting on a client for too long, the cards start changing colors on us, and we know that something's going on there. Plus the other thing about using TopLeft is the ability, not only do you have the visual reference to everything that's there, but like you can start, you start the stopwatch and you start working on it right there. Everything's right there in that card. So it's all about working in that, starting it, putting your notes in, dragging that card to the next step. There's just so many more efficiencies working for us, working with projects, than there would be just in the project module. So, yeah.
So your team is also entering notes and time as well from TopLeft?
We're getting there. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have to work just basically because we're Connectwise experts. We like to work in the native system as much as possible. But anytime we get a chance, like with me wanting to see all the project stuff, I'll go to TopLeft and start my project review in there. And right there, while I'm reviewing all the projects, I can put in notes on that ticket. I can ping the resource. I can do it all right there without me having to switch back to Connectwise, find the project, drill into it, go into the work plan, update a ticket. Instead, I just do it right there in the TopLeft card.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just so much easier. It's just so much easier. It's, there are so many things in Connectwise and Autotask that come close to getting the job done, but it's not quite. And that's why a tool like TopLeft can be so beneficial. One of the things we always look for is ways to improve your bottom line by getting rid of administrative overhead. And there's a lot of administrative overhead in managing tickets and projects without a tool like TopLeft because of the way that the system's built. There's a lot of clicking that's going on, and clicking it's small, but it is administrative overhead. And so if you can get rid of that by using a tool, then it's well worth the investment.
Yeah, there's obviously time dealing with the clicking, but for me, as it increases the odds of me procrastinating on a task if I know it's going to be like 17 clicks to go and find that, because you got to remember that's more decisions to make, and it's just like a emotional kind of resistance. So the easier it is, the more likely I am to go do it.
That's right. Yeah,
the things in there.
Yeah. And from a visual, we could talk about the science behind everything with TopLeft and Kanban and all that, but in reality, if you think at it from a very simple vision perspective, just at first glance, you've got something that's entering your screen on the left, and you're keeping it moving. You're going next step, next step, next step, next step, until finally, like you said, it's going to fall off on the right-hand side. And the biggest problem, one of the biggest problems that we see with when we get into a system is that people get overwhelmed by the sheer number of tickets and the sheer number of things that have to be done. And we don't see very often, we don't see the next step. And that's where service delivery mistakes happen. And that's where customer service issues crop up, is because something got dropped off or something got forgotten about and hidden. And we did not have a next step. We did not have what has to happen next. Whereas with TopLeft, that's going to be there, and you're going to see it, and it has to move over to the next step.
Yep.
Keep it moving. And it's the same with anything. I mean, if you don't have a next step for something, there's no guarantee that it's going to happen, So we try to address that as often as we can, and using a tool is great for that, because you do have that visual reference that everything needs to move from left to right till it falls off. Once it falls off, you're done with it. You can move back to the left again and start all over.
Yep. Yeah. Next step, basics of like getting things done, like any sort of productivity, time management. That's all about the next step. You can knowing where you're going, and then the next step or two, because then the rest will kind of fall into place often.
Right.
You know the destination and what your first turn is to get there.
Right. Yeah.
And map out every single step along the way. Sometimes in some projects you do. Yeah. Okay. So before I want to zone in that what we talked about is, or in the email invite, is from between the kickoff and the done, because that's really where we make or lose money on a project. But I just want to, for everyone who's on here, see a number of project managers, service managers, is, if you got a real pain point with projects or a problem or something, a gnarly one, throw it out in the chat, and we'll or in the Q&A, and we'll do our best at answering that, or perhaps bringing you on. So think about, some sort of problem or something you're working on, what's going on in your world, and we'll go through that. I do have the question from Alex in the chat about the client communication on a project. And that's where some things like Monday.com, Basecamp, Asana, they handle those things really well. You can paste in screenshots, attachments, it's all there. Connectwise has sucked at it. It's not a feature we have yet in TopLeft, but obviously it's on a roadmap and then coming up soon to be able to see your attachments and able to add to it. But yeah, we internally, we use OneNote as well. Alex mentions OneNote. We have our wiki, we have different things. What have you seen to work with, still trying to keep as much as we can in Connectwise or other tasks?
It is challenging. I mean, you can put, I don't know, you can put with the new, I say it's new, it's, it used to be that we had everything was limited to text, and then we got rich text, and now we can embed some pictures and things in emails from Connectwise. However, it's still not there in terms of a full document management platform. And with document management, I'm referring to, Alex, to your question, I'm referring to not just anything like PDFs and Word docs, but also those multimedia files, the pictures, the short videos or anything. Technician takes a short video of whatever, and that is always going to be a challenge. And one of the ways to get around it, or one of the ways that we've seen work, is to have like a documentation ticket or a documentation note link, something here on the main project page, where I can link from that project or from that ticket rather to the Teams or SharePoint or something where that client folder is. So it is a challenge because it does a fine job of getting documents in, and then we have to go click to find where that document is and open it. But it doesn't do a good job of saying, okay, here's the latest document, or it doesn't integrate in any way with with something like Teams where you can have document collaboration. That would be awesome if we could do something like that. Right now, that's definitely a drawback. That's definitely a sticking point where you can't see. You can get the document in there, but it's kind of a trick to figure out where it is. You can always go to the attachments tab of the project and sort and do that stuff. But it's still putting it in proper context of where that ticket is. That's the challenge. And so everybody's trying different things to make that work. So using Teams, links in Teams and stuff like that seems to be the prevalent manner to make that happen. That's a good question, because that is one of those little pet peeves about, it's like, okay, well, I've got this great, like you said, floor plan, right? I've got a great floor plan, or I've got a cool video where the technician went in or the engineer went in, and we're looking at where we're going to put this, this network rack or whatever. And I got pictures, and I've got them. Now, what do I do with them? And they end up 9 times out of 10, they end up in Outlook, unfortunately. But if there's a way, if you can take your project plan, and in your project plan, have a ticket for those images and documentation, and in that ticket have a link, and the link goes to Teams. I've seen that work effectively. So, yeah.
There's a breadcrumb, we call it. Like, you can use an external system, but have a link that you can it's easy to find the link. Everyone knows where to go. It's in that documentation ticket somewhere, easy to access, and click on it. It can go to anywhere, like OneNote, Trello, wherever, but just follow the breadcrumb.
Yeah. And then I've also talked with someone recently that had a project, had a configuration that was attached to the project, and the configuration was it included all the images. And so it was like, you've got a configuration record. In that configuration record are all the pictures that are associated with this specific project, and it's tied to the project through a service ticket, or through a project ticket. And that's another interesting way to hold it, because then you can get to it even if you're not a PM. You could still get to it if you needed to, even if you weren't a member of that project. If it's a configuration attached to the company, at the company level, somebody that's not on the project team that may need to reference those pictures can reference them, because the configuration is tied to the company. And then as far as the project is concerned, whoever's on the project team can always reference them, because that configuration is there inside of the project. So using a configuration is another option.
Yep. Awesome. Okay, yeah, I just turned on the chat in Zoom so people can put in their project questions or conversation starters in the chat. Okay, so setting up a project so it flows from the start, the kickoff, where you got approved quote, SOW, whatever it might be. There's a bunch of ways of doing that. That's a whole other discussion on its own. Quozo or Connectwise sell different things. Could be an email, verbal, doesn't matter. The project's in the system. It's in your PSA, list of projects. How to get it to flow well. And I think that's, to me, it's a picture of setting a higher bar for what that looks like for success, not just getting it done, but profit. It should not be a loss leader against our managed recurring revenue. We should be profitable both. It should be an amazing client experience and get it done quickly. So I guess, what are the pitfalls you've seen or the common mistakes that slow down projects?
So a lot of the common mistakes is that instead of setting the project up with a project template, or setting the project up with logical next steps involved as part of the execution phase of the project, a lot of times we'll see people just spit out a list of tickets, and it'll be a list of tickets that that just need to be done. So if as with any project, if you have the luxury of stepping back for a little bit and actually you put your architecture hat on and try to engineer what that project flow would look like in a perfect world where you have no interruptions and all the products were there, and you had all the resources you need to get it done. If you can envision that and get that designed into your project work plan, and then put your budget hours on there against those tickets, those project tickets, then when your project is finally done, you'll be able to go back and do a post-mortem on that project and say, okay, how close were we on the budget on these, on the budget hours? How close were we on the timing and the scheduling and the resource allocation? You're just going to go back and just basically review and have a closure party and pass around the pizza and some beers or whatever and say, here's what we did right, here's what we did wrong, and here's where we hit, we analyzed this and we analyzed that and find out that we were way off budget or we were way under budget. Now, by doing that, then the next project you do is going to be even better because you have a better idea of where you need to be in terms of, the project status and project movement forward, and then the budget itself. So, yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, Wim, or not, but that's, one of the biggest things when we get into projects with clients is we'll see, yes, there's a project, and usually there's one phase with 1,000 tickets, or a phase in a ticket, phase in a ticket, phase in a ticket, that kind of thing. And, if you don't know, you don't know, but, the idea would be you want to have some sort of management phase, and then, then you're going to get into your planning and your communications and then your execution. And again, when I think of projects, I try to think as in the most, generic and simple form possible, and then get into the details. But it's always the next step. It's always whatever that next step is. The first step's got to be this, then the next step's got to be that. Then you set up your budget hours for getting that stuff done so that you can go back and analyze it and see how well you did. Yep. The budget hours are also important, based on earlier I was mentioning everything in Connectwise, for example, goes from left to right. So on the left hand, if you can envision on the left-hand side, there's sales. The sales are selling this. And if sales sells something that ends up in a project, and there's absolutely no way that could happen based on what was sold, then you'll have, if you can do the project plan and stick to the plan, put your time in as you're working the project and keep your budget, in line, then at the end of the project, you can go back to sales and say, here's where you got it wrong. Let's talk about it next time and get it right before it ever gets to us, So yeah, that's kind of some of the pitfalls I see in that area.
Yeah, lack of feedback and retrospective, looking back at how did it go? What could we have done better?
Yeah, you have to have that accountability loop, right? So you figure it out, you train on it, you get it done, you review it and assess it, and you train it, you figure it out again and train, and it's just constantly everybody learning to do it a little bit better every time around.
Yeah. Definitely need good handoffs from obviously sales to project, from project to service. Mm-hmm. Because that's where you can lose clients. They could be doing a cold handoff, and hey, here, assigned you to project, now you take it on, but not involved with the sales process. That can be, I've seen that. That's a big problem, because then the techs are doing the work and they're doing it wrong. They're actually not delivering on the top 3 things the client wanted.
Yeah.
We can do that phone system migration, but they're not happy because there were some things verbally mentioned or in emails that are hidden away. It might be in the Connectwise, but it's not in the project. Techs don't know. So they set it up and it's missing basic assumptions that the client had.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all. Yeah, kind of standard PM things. So I'll bring up what actually the guy asked a really important question, which I think this is actually gets to the heart of improving flow, and it's around the WIP limit, the work in progress limit for projects. So you can look at that at a ticket level for each person, whether it's some administrative person doing work in tickets or an engineer or a project manager, is how many tickets do they have in progress? The more they have, the more it takes to manage it. If they're working on 10 tickets today that are in various stages of completion, they're jumping around, they're cherry picking, that takes a lot of time. We could also look at the macro level of the projects. So if you got a client, an MSP with, let's say 100, I don't know, even if you got like 30 projects on deck, what's the sweet spot for how many should be in progress, actually started working on it, not done yet? That is
a great question. You talk to 5 people, you get 5 different answers on that one, right? Because you've got, to really answer that, you have to consider the amount of resources you have on hand that you can allocate to the project. So I don't know that there is a good answer to that. It's more of, that's a good conversation, though. Yeah. It'd be nice to expand on that a little bit to get an idea of, of what you're really asking there, to make sure we understand it. So no. So okay, 1 per tech. So yeah, so yeah, and again, it's going to depend on the complexity of the project, right? So I don't know that there's a specific 1 per, 2 per, 3 per tech kind of thing, because it's so the numbers vary so much based on the complexity of the project and the skill level of the tech, and all of those factors, a lot of factors there. And I'm happy to kind of take that a little bit offhand if you want to get in touch with me after sometime next week and talk a little bit more about that if you want to take it offline. So we see if we can. Yeah.
I can try to answer that. So we love the Phoenix Project book. I got the book cover on my wall there, Phoenix Project with IT and DevOps. And the big lesson of that book is theory of constraints, is basically all about bottlenecks. So your flow through a system, or the throughput, just like the throughput on a 4-lane highway, is all about the bottleneck. Like if it's going down to 1 lane because it was construction, well, that's going to be your limiting factor. Looking at your merge points, different things like that. So, and we can apply that in our MSP environments as well. So what's the bottleneck? It might be the project manager, because you can only talk to so many people and be in so many meetings and watch so many things. Mm-hmm. If you look at the book, the Phoenix Project, there's a whole story around IT and DevOps, and you got the Brent character, but he ends up being the bottleneck in all these things. The reason why their multi-million-dollar projects can't get done is because it all depends on Brent, who's been there for 10 years and knows the SAN and the firewall and code and different things. So when they visualize that, reduce his work in progress, then everything starts getting unblocked. So taking away things from him that he doesn't really need to be doing, somebody else could be doing, training others on the things he's doing. So that's often, I think, in a team, the bottleneck is that senior resource who knows the architecture, the design, he's getting pulled in. And he's often overwhelmed, burnt out. And some of the work he's doing is he wasn't even assigned on the project, but he ends up being the guy that knows how it fits into everything else. They're pulling him in for the quick question, which ends up being a 2-hour thing. And now the stuff that was on his plate for the day isn't getting done.
Yeah.
But
that's a great book. I need to read that book again.
Yeah. It's there's a lot. It's worth reading a couple of times. There's some other one called the Bottleneck Rules. Recommend that book as well. I'll pop the. We've got the resource page on our website where we link those books. So I'll pop that in the chat as a reminder. If you scroll down, you'll see the books. Yeah, Making Work Visible and the Bottleneck Rules. Scroll down, 4 books. That's a short. The reason I mentioned it because it's a shorter read than the Phoenix Project.
Mm-hmm.
Phoenix Project, I think you're like 8 or 10 hours. The Bottleneck Rules is like 2 hours. Then the other book is Making Work Visible, Exposing Time Theft to Optimize Work and Flow. So love that book as well. So I don't know if that helps there a bit, Guy. And then there is data with, if you get critical chain project management, that's like the books from Eliyahu Goldratt, who passed several years ago. But he wrote the books like The Goal and some other ones, and he gets into that as well. Bottlenecks, different things. Yeah, reading, awesome. Yeah. And that's what Phoenix Project is based on. It's like a modern version of The Goal, but for IT.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fantastic. And then there's a guy I've worked with in the Netherlands, Jan from Empower Projects, where he's built out an Excel model where you can put in all your projects, and it looks at really macro level. It doesn't care about your tickets. It's just the length of the project and then who's assigned to it and making sure your people are not constrained. So you can look up his videos. You can pick up the concept from it.
There's another book that that I've enjoyed reading. It's not specific to projects, but it's great for just anything that we're doing here in the IT space or any space really. It's called Deep Work. And it's an interesting read. It really, the funny thing about it is that with deep work, to read it, you have to focus and concentrate. And the book is all about focusing and concentrating. so yeah, it's.
I haven't found the time to focus on reading the book.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but it's Cal Newport. It's a good book. It's interesting because one of the biggest things about projects is that they, a lot of times we talk about scope creep, and a lot of times scope creep happens within. So, you could be installing something or whatever, and then you see where, oh, well, I could make this a little bit better, or I could do this and make and improve what I'm doing here. And before you know it, you're an hour later, you're like, oh yeah, that looks good. That's perfect. And suddenly you're an hour off budget because you wanted to rearrange cables, where you could have gone back and done this later, or, if you had any project budget hours left over, or maybe you want to do a different, sell them a different, cable management program later or whatever. That's a terrible example, but that's the idea. I mean, it's like, if I focus on exactly what I'm doing and stay focused on this and then this and then this and then this, then it'll get done quicker than if I try to do this, that, right? So the whole time slicing thing. So Deep Work talks about some of that a little bit more in depth. It's really a fascinating book.
Yeah. So I think that's how we want to design our projects, is that people are not rushing around, they're not feeling constrained or overwhelmed. So they can do the little extra bit to improve how they do work, to leverage some of those opportunities. Like you're on site anyways, you see a mess, like clean it up, you got a half an hour and life is still okay. We're still going to be on track with our budget.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're scheduled green, as Connectwise would say, and back to back everything, then people are not going to feel that liberty to do that.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And then obviously one of the things of reducing the work in progress is reducing the multitasking, because that just kills productivity, jumping between tasks. and like just mentally, it's very overwhelming as well. So if we get down to single piece flow, that's key. And also at a project level, like if your highest velocity, which may not be the most efficient or profitable, is your entire team is dedicated to one project at a time until it's done. So even if they're idle, there might be a couple of people that are idle, but they're waiting because they might be needed. And you don't want to wait on them to finish the other project to come back. So that's may not be that efficient because you got waiting people, but sometimes it is more profitable or efficient to have some idle resources that you can easily pull in. You could be doing some like busy, keep them occupied work and be on hand to pull in so you're not delaying the project. And then the other extreme is everyone's just got their own projects. That's horribly inefficient. But if you can find that balance, that's where things start getting unblocked and moving. Because you can have that meeting, you can huddle about one project because you're just working on one project. You don't have to go through a project list of 10 things and here's all the things we didn't do in the last week. And let's repeat the conversation next week. So you can cut the meetings and it's just about that one project and getting her done.
Yeah, it feels to do that feels so counterintuitive, because you're thinking, oh, well, I'm getting a lot done here. I'm having busy days, but you're not really moving things forward as well as you could be.
Yep. Yeah, we're going to band something nice graphic. Somebody else posts on LinkedIn around ban busy. People, you want to focus on the productivity of finishing things, not starting, scheduling it, all those wonderful things. All right. That was those questions. So what are other areas of projects that perhaps project managers struggle with getting into their new role?
I think one of the biggest things, just being able to manage their entire, we were just talking about this, right? But if you have multiple projects going on, and that's just the way it is, then being able to manage all of them at once, it's really challenging. I mean, at a glance, you can see some things with the Connectwise view. You can see some things with the Gantt chart. That's a whole nother conversation about the Gantt chart. But with something like TopLeft, it gives you so much of a better view of all the projects that you have going on just at a glance, at the ticket level. So, you can look at project budgets and things like that within, in this case, within Connectwise or Autotask. But when you're looking at a ticket level, you want to see what's going on with your projects. This is really a good resolution to doing that, because otherwise you do have to drill into each work plan and hope that, everything, all the tickets have been updated correctly and things like that. So with the work plan, I try to keep that as clean as possible. There's a million different ways to arrange a work plan and to arrange project statuses or ticket statuses. But if you can keep things simple to where your thought process is, I've got a thing, I need to schedule it, I need to, execute on it, I need to make sure it's working, and then I need to close it. If you can keep things to that level, it's going to help you with project efficiencies just by knowing, that I'm moving my next steps forward. I'm moving my next steps, down the list.
Yep.
So yeah. There's a lot of times when we'll get into a situation where somebody started using projects and things just go there to die. So it gets moved to the project and then it gets forgotten about because it's not on the service board. Everybody seems to live on the service board, right? So it's not on the service board, they forget about it. And, if you do start using projects, you have to start using projects. You can't, you really shouldn't use it like, oh, it's over here in case I get ready to work on this project more. You should use projects if you're going to use projects. And then use TopLeft to help manage those projects, and use the different views in TopLeft to help manage those projects, the entire portfolio of them.
So you touched on something important there is, well, I've seen that in my MSPs and with the other companies I talk to is mixing people having to do project and service.
Mm-hmm.
And then both can get kind of neglected, or the projects typically in our world, typically the projects get the short end of the stick and they don't happen. But there may not be enough for that skill set and what that engineer is doing, or there's just not enough projects to keep them busy full time as a project resource.
Yeah.
So how, I guess with TopLeft, what have you seen works to help keep both flowing and people not, on the other hand, and engineers not burning out with overwhelm or deadlines?
Yeah. So, you can filter by engineer, right? So you can filter by there's so many different filters that are available in TopLeft. And so doing that, giving you a visual reference, you can start just sliding tickets to make things happen, right? So you can slide, you're like, okay, well, yeah, this is scheduled, it's in the wrong status, I'm gonna slide it over. Or this is in progress and it's really not in progress, it's really on hold, I'm gonna slide it over. And by doing that, you're gonna get a quick rundown of all the things that you have going on, and then be able to manage those. And then it's also engaging with the side of your brain that is thinking about things visually instead of, at a list level. So you're thinking about them visually and you're able to move things around, to make the progress that you need to keep the project and the service tickets moving.
Yep.
So yeah, there's a lot to be said for the, using the visual side of your mind to do that stuff. Also you've got, there's also a series of, think about the automation within the programs, right? Within the PSA, if you have something going stale, you set up a workflow to ping somebody or to do something where that, hey, this thing should have been taken care of, 15 days ago, and here we are at 30 days, and it's still sitting here, right? So somebody's going to get pinged on that, and then, you need to take action at that point. So, we really haven't talked much about any kind of the workflow rules or anything, the automation that's in there, but, that can help you as well. You can change ticket statuses as needed, which, you change ticket status in a workflow rule, it's going to move that card in TopLeft.
Yep.
Right, to the proper swim lane there. So you can take advantage of that in your system to help you with your project flow as well.
Yep. Yep, I've seen that as well. People have a lot of workflow rules on service tickets, but not on projects, and it all applies there. We used to have a lot of rules like email notification and such around, hey, if it's open too long or over budget. Now it's like we've cut a lot of that, the email notification out almost completely, and it all relies on TopLeft for visualizing it.
Yeah, I mean, email overload, right? So workflow rules will send emails, but if you can do something more effective or efficient just by changing the status and having that move to a place on TopLeft where you're going to visually see here's our problem. Things that are going on here. Here are things that are past due, or here are things that are, more than 30 days old or whatever. So you can see that without even having to bring open an email. You've got, at some point, no email is the best, right? You get everything into Connectwise and you don't have to use email. That's awesome. But because there's so much noise.
Yeah, our team uses email very little because there's some that's chat-based with Slack and Teams with clients, and then through the tickets through TopLeft.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. We've had some clients where, the goal is to have technicians not even have an email address because their work needs to be done in the system, not in Outlook.
I think our struggle has been just like what Alex mentioned, that collaboration and sending documents and formatting, that the email connector in Connectwise is so rudimentary that it doesn't pick it up, and it's creating more tickets for every response. And it doesn't have a bunch of intelligence that newer ticket systems have today.
Yeah.
In processing email. So, and sometimes the client gets so frustrated with the ticket experience that we have to take it out. Yeah, I want to get back on track. So what are the on this call we've got people who are never really or haven't used TopLeft yet, and some who are customers, and some people or maybe have worked with you or have not. So what are the typical? Just curious, what are the typical engagements you help your clients with MSPs? What is that? What do you do actually for your clients?
Yeah. So one of the things that the reason I started the company, like I said earlier, is because there are a lot of people in the industry that will help you understand what you need to do with your Connectwise, right? A lot of coaches. There are a lot of applications that say you need to configure this, 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 and this. There's great programs and concepts out there, Chartech, C-level, all the above, right? And then, so you learn what you need to do to set all these things up, but at the end of the day, you don't have time to do it, right? So to engage with us, we actually do the work. We'll get in there and help understand what you want to happen, what your strategy is, and help you, with getting the work done. We'll clean up what needs to be cleaned up and, recreate what needs to be created and run work, create workflow rules and, clean up product catalogs and clean up all the financial stuff. If it takes you longer than 2 or 3 minutes to do invoicing every month, something's not right in your Connectwise, right? So those are the kinds of things that we look for to help our clients is, things where the system, what the system will do. We just haven't had time to get it set up properly to do it. The Connectwise University is, in our case, Connectwise, the university is very comprehensive. It has so much information in it, but you don't want to dedicate billable resources to setting up your Connectwise because that's a loss, right? So we just do it for you. We've been doing this for 10 years and worked with companies of all sizes. So yeah, so it's been great to help a lot of people out.
Yeah. Okay, and then I guess you're bringing some of the how and the learning along the way as well.
Absolutely, yeah, we do. Well, it's gonna depend. If you are a client where you want to learn as we go, then you'll be looking over our shoulder and we'll be training you as we go. And then if you're just an MSP where you just want to get the work done so you can move on, then we do it behind the scenes in between calls and get the work done for you.
Love that. And then I guess you also get discarded. You just start with the conversation and see if it's a fit.
That's it. Just start with conversation and we go from there. I mean, it's just a regular, having been in the MSP space for as many years as I have, there's a lot that I have, haven't run across. There's not a lot that I haven't run across. So, we'll talk to you good, bad, or ugly about your stuff. So, yeah.
Good. Yeah. So I'll wrap it up there. That's been great to dig into some of those things and hear your experience. Obviously in the industry and these pain points, you've lived them yourself. You see your clients living them, and TopLeft is helping with a number of areas, maybe not everything, because there's a lot of problems out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, just keeping the data in the PSA, visualize it, all of that. And then on our side, if you're not using TopLeft yet, we can get you a demo with your PSA data. We actually do a free trial with a concierge call up front to get all your data in there and set up the board. So you can, like within a day or two, with your existing PSA data, see all the things that Bill mentioned today. So just post in the chat or email me and Wim at topleft.team, or just go to the website, book a demo, and we'll take it from there. So is there anything else you wanted to cover or ask or share there before we say our goodbyes, Bill?
I think that's it. It's been great talking. I love these conversational webinars because you could talk about all kinds of things. You could end up talking forever. Yeah. So it's been great talking to you as always.
Yeah, that was good. And I think with this format, it's actually what I do on the podcast. So I think we'll just push it out there as well. And lots of project topics there.
I appreciate everybody taking time this afternoon.
Yeah,
it's good to see everybody. So yeah.
All right. Thank you. Bye now.
Take care.